All right. Hey, everyone. This is Jen from the Cardomancer. And today we are talking with Stephanie Redfeather. And we're give everyone a few minutes to hop on. If you, in the comments, it tells you to give permission. And all that does is give your name on my comment thing because I am using StreamYard. So that's totally, legit if you're comfortable doing that. If not, we have Amber in the comments, and I'm actually going to bring it up on my phone too, just in case, to make sure, because you never know. Although we did speak to the gods about Mercury retrograde, so we're hoping that sticks. We're going with it. It's totally happening. So, all right, good. Let me turn my volume off so I don't need to be. Oh yeah, okay, good. I see us. Now I'm going to share it. Let's share it. Get it out there to all the people. All right. I think I'm sharing it. Yeah, here we go. All right. There we go. There is Amber. Hello. All right. I'm going to put that to the side just in case we need it. All right, so let's go ahead. Let me introduce this wonderful, majestic goddess here we have. Like I mentioned, this is Dr. Reverend Stephanie Redfeather, PhD. I got it right? Okay. You're so fancy. You got all these letters. I love it.
Come up and throw them in there.
So Stephanie, she's the founder and director of the Blue Star Temple, an ordained shamanic minister. She holds a bachelor's degree in applied mathematics and a master's and doctorate degrees in shamanic studies from the Venus Rising University. She's the author of The Evolutionary Empath, and she lives in Kansas City, Missouri. I've never been to Kansas City. I do have to go visit there sometime. What's exciting in Kansas City?
Depends on what your fancy is. We have a good barbecue. We have some beautiful architecture. We have the Kansas City Chiefs. We've got, the downtown plaza. And
all right, cool. Yeah, I gotta get there. Well, thank you for coming on with us today. I'm so excited to have you on. Yeah. And I have to say, your necklace is absolutely beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
Okay. So you created which I have here, the Empath activation cards. Yay. So, and I actually used these in my live the other day as well. So we got to know them a little bit. And I have to say one of my favorite things is how you address everyone in the guidebook. Like each one is like, you have like dearest child of the stars. And I told Amber, that's how I want to be addressed forever now.
I love it. Jen, forget Mrs. or Ms. It's like
the stars. I'm child of the stars now. Thank you. It was like, so I'm like, and everyone I read, it was like a different one. And I'm like, I just love this so much. And it's like the silliest thing, but I really like it.
Well, so I love hearing that.
That's good. So can you, just tell us a little bit about these cards, because like I wouldn't exactly call them oracle cards, even though they're in that realm of oracle cards. I feel like they're a little bit more than that. Mm-hmm. So could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that, because that was my intention when I created them. Was yes, they can absolutely be used like any other oracle deck where you pull a card or do a spread or however you like to interact with them. But I had my intention from the beginning that I wanted this to serve another purpose. And what's interesting, at least about my process and the way my guides work with me, is I didn't know exactly what that was. I just knew I was holding that space. And it wasn't until probably 80 to 90% of the way through creating all the artwork and writing the messages, then all of the cards, the images, they started to gather themselves into 4 sets of 11. There's 44 cards. Mm-hmm. And what I realized was this oracle deck, you can actually, this is the accompanying guidebook, and you can read it from front to back like a self-guided initiation into the mysteries of higher consciousness.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
And so if I may, I won't read a whole lot here, but I want to share the initiatory paths, because
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, the cards themselves, like I said, they organized themselves into, and what was interesting is that all the artwork, the original art, is on 8x10 canvas. And so I just put them all on my bed. And then they just started going, okay, I started making piles of like, these 11 want to be together, these 11 want to be together.
It's like a big cosmic puzzle.
I know, right.
Right.
And so the first initiatory path is healing, holing, and practices for embodiment. The second initiatory path is light body expansion and tools of mastery over your perception and experience. Initiatory path 3 is activating higher consciousness, the astral plane, and tools of multidimensionality. And initiatory path 4 is cosmic mission, star relatives, and your power as co-creator with divinity. So you can tell just by the languaging and feeling the energy of it, that as you move through these initiatory paths, you start out at kind of the 3D earth level. And then as you move through, the frequency raises, the perspective expands until you get to the fourth path. And so that's what I mean by, you can just take yourself straight through these as a self-study, if you will.
Right. Yeah. And I think too, it's really an awesome way to just, like, if you've never done anything like this before, like, you've literally just put a map out in front of us to go through and really dive into it. So for somebody that would be just starting, like, they really don't understand what the dimensions are, they're like, I don't know what all this is. Like, how would you, recommend that they start with these cards?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't say to use them any differently. Mm-hmm. What I would advise is, don't get tripped up or beat yourself up or go into your left brain if you pull a card or read a message that's like, I don't know what that is, I don't know what that means. I mean, these are activation cards. They are meant to light you up, if you will, activate things. And so it's like there are things that we understand on a, our cells have consciousness, right? Our heart has consciousness. There are a lot of other intelligences besides just our brain. But what happens is, especially in the Western world, we're trained to think the brain is all there is. And so that's what I meant by, if we go in the left brain, it's like, oh, I have to study, I have to understand what this means, I have to know how to apply this. And it's like, just, it's okay. If you don't understand it, just breathe it in and be with it. And let it inform you, and trust that you're getting what you need from this card, whether you understand it or not.
Right. And I think that's a really good point, is just that trust, because, like you said, we're trained to only believe what's in front of us, right? From little kids. I mean, we have all that wonder and we just believe all these things, and then it's just kind of like smushed down as we get older. And so we have to tap back into that. And I really like that with these cards, just seeing these images is really like touching on these little things that are just, again, awakening what's already inside of you. And it's like, this is nothing new. This was already in there. Like, this is just waking everything up. So I think that, learning to trust yourself, trust your intuition is so, so important. Now, what advice would you have for people to work on their intuition and learn to trust it?
Right. Intuition is oftentimes the signals we receive physically through our body. And so there's a lot that I could say here. Historically, if you look at the ancient religions and spiritual practices, most of them focus on the upward movement of energy, the transcendence, the leaving the body, if you will, transcending the body, aesthetic practices. But the body is associated with the feminine, right? Anna Day of Judith, who's an expert in the chakra system, says there's two channels of energy. The manifesting channel goes downwards, and the the liberating channel, I just forgot, it moves upwards. And so these upward practices are more masculine, if you will, and have created this separation from the feminine, the separation from the body. You know, a lot of, especially those of us in certain aspects of Christianity, like that the body is sinful, right? You want to, you know, shove down your impulses. They're bad, they're evil, they're dirty, etc. Right. But what that, you know, plays subconsciously in our mind is, I can't trust my body.
Right.
And so part of this is the long way of answering your question.
No, you are great. You go right ahead. People don't know, you know, they need these explanations. So you are doing wonderfully. You keep on.
So, you know, so I believe that part of learning to trust your intuition is learning to get back in touch with your body, trusting your body, knowing that, you know, if the point, it's like, what was the point of coming into a body, right? Of incarnating, if the purpose was just to leave our body again and become one with Creator. And I'm not knocking those practices. I think practices in the upward direction and practices in the downward or embodiment direction are equally important. But through millennia, there's been so much emphasis on this leaving the body upward direction, and not enough emphasis on the groundedness and the embodiment and bringing spirit all the way down into the body to bring heaven to earth. Why else would we choose to come into a body if it wasn't to experience the uniqueness of being in the body?
Right, like you're wasting good time here by just ignoring it.
Yeah. And so those signals can be different. You know, when I started learning Reiki, I recognized that when I close my eyes, it's like right behind my third eye, I could feel this tingling. And like, okay, that's when I knew that Reiki was flowing. And then over time, I started to, you know, just tuning in and developing, my body would give me other signals. Like if something lands as truth, I will momentarily get choked up. I'll get this feeling of almost just about to cry. And there's other sensations too. So our body is a wealth of information, and will give that to us if we pay attention to it.
Right. Yeah. And it's so funny. I always love because I do Reiki as well. And I always love when other people explain it, because the tingling is always involved. Like for me, my hands get tingly. Like it's like you're going ready to do it and my hands get tingly. So I'm always excited when people say that, because I'm like, yay, it's not just me. But I agree with that, you know, and it's something I don't think many people even consider about just the going out. Like we're ascending, we're going out, it's like we're going to catch spirit. We're going, instead of just taking it and bringing it into us and actually embodying it and feeling it and seeing what this body can actually do for you and what you can do for others, because most of us are, we are of service, and we are here to help others. So I definitely, and that's even like with Reiki, right? Like that's the whole thing. We're here to help others. And I think that is really, really a good point and something to think about as far as bringing it in. So for someone who hasn't done that, they've only done the upper stuff, what can you recommend for them to work on to just really start embodying their actual physical body?
Sometimes it's just a matter of, kind of shaking hands with yourself. Oh, hello, body. Nice to, so
I love that.
I've guided some clients through practices like they were so disembodied that they just couldn't even connect with themselves, to just go through a simple practice of touching yourself. And you can do that with clothes or without clothes, and just touch a part of your body, feel that part of your body, feeling your hands or fingers on it, and then tune into just simple, is it warm? Is it cold? Is there a color associated with it? Is there an emotion? Just practices to develop your awareness. Another pillar of my work is around embodiment. And I really believe there's a disembodiment epidemic in the world. Yeah. And it makes sense if you think about the chakra system, right? As related to the colors. Each color is lower in frequency as you move down the chakra system, right? Manifest something, we take it from a higher vibration into this process of bringing it into physical form. And so all our pain, our unresolved issues, our woundings, our traumas are usually stored in the lower chakras. And so why wouldn't we just say, the heck with this? I'm going to live up here.
Right. Root chakra, what? We're going to leave that down there.
So, you know, part of the answer is look at your stuff. You know, do the work of going inward and healing yourself. And that's also going to help bring you into your body.
Right. And I like too that you were saying, like, it's just as simple as just feeling your body and being mindful. It doesn't, you don't need to dive right into this like deep work that's going to probably be too much for you, like baby steps. But, you know, that's good to even start working that, because it will, I mean, it'll help no matter what. And, you know, even right now, just in our, society, you go on any social media, everybody's always working on, the manifesting. We're all up here, and we aren't really paying attention to that. We're, like you said, like that's that grounded one. We don't want to talk about that one. It's like, it's the boring one, but that also is the one that, like, okay, well, if you want these to work, they all got to work together here, people. So that's always something, like when I go like on any of the social medias and stuff, and Amber and I always joke around, because I'll go on TikTok for investigative purposes, I swear. And some of the messages on there, I'm just like, oh, no, don't do that, And I think it's really, really important, like you said, to really just pay attention to all of them, and those lower chakras and all of that as well. And, and I love that you can use these cards too to really work on those and really, again, just embody yourself, and, and that will only help you, level up. Like, we want to get out of that 3D, and move up a little bit. So, so for somebody who doesn't know what like 3D, 4D, 5D is, could you just quickly explain that for them?
Yeah, 3D, and there's different models. So there's, if you're familiar with Barbara Hanclau, there's the Alchemy of 9 Dimensions. There's other models, but generally 3D is described as this life that we're in, the body, the physical, the XYZ axis, 3 dimensions, up, down, sideways, in, out. In some models, 4th dimension is described as time, the dimension of time, or the dimension of the archetypal realm in the Alchemy of 9 Dimensions, Barbara Hanclau version. 5D is the next evolution, if you will. So 4D, it's really esoteric. It's kind of hard to explain. So it's not like a ladder or a linear process in a way, because we can be in all the dimensions at the same time, working with them all at the same time. And so 5D is just that next higher vibrational state, where it's marked much more by unity consciousness, as opposed to the polarities. We're used to everything being one way or the other. Right. And, when we can expand ourselves to make room for both to be true, the both and, the opposites, that's what unity is making space for the whole. And all of a sudden this third thing emerges, this unity thing, which is, a simplified way of describing 5D.
Right. Yeah. And, and I think, again, a wonderful point you made was that you can be working on all of them at once. Like, you can be, because I have seen a couple of different things that have said other, like, you have to, it's like a video game, like you're leveling up on a video game or something, And so I do think that's so important for people to know, is that, like you said, it's more fluid. It's just, you're working on all of these things, and you can work on all these things. You don't have to put them in little boxes. Like, you can just do it all together, because at the end, it's all together anyway, right? Like, it's that whole unity thing. So I love that.
Well, in the shamanic tradition that I practice, and with shamanic teachers, we spend a lot of time cultivating our ability to travel between the worlds, to access altered states, different dimensions of consciousness. And so, a term we use is walking between the worlds. You become aware of, yes, I'm in the 3D and the 5D at the same time, or I'm, it becomes you know, like we're multi-dimensional travelers.
Right, right. No, for sure. And I kind of like, I'm like a shamanic like baby. I've done, you know, like I've done some stuff and whatever. And but I even just doing like a simple journey, like it's really it's amazing like how profound it is and how like rooted and grounded you do feel, even though you're doing here, there, you're, you know, in the underworld or whatever you're doing. And it's really, it's an amazing practice. Like I've been so drawn to it for years, and I've just not found like a teacher or anybody like to really like show me. So I've always just kind of dabbled. But I think even if people too are really interested in that too, even just trying to, you know, probably check out some of your stuff, I would say, and like just see and like see what it's all about. And definitely, because it is like, it really is profound. And I really, I don't know. It's one of those things like I can just talk about it like forever because I just love it. So and you know, as I was like looking at things and, you know, looking, you know, checking you out a little bit here, I noticed that I was like, oh, that's exciting. I loved it. I was like, oh, that's nice. But I wanted to just go through and just show a couple of your cards as well, because they are awesome. So let's see here. Get them out here. So I put a couple on the top, the ones that really like spoke to me, that I really love. So I'm showing you the ones I like. I mean, I like them all.
Sure. Matter to me.
As long as I can get the camera right, that's the most important thing right now. We're opposite. So this one, yes, I absolutely love this one. And I have to, which one was, there was this one I thought was really interesting too. This one, because this one, I really feel it in my right eye. Isn't that strange? Like, I don't know what it is, but there's something with my right eye. Like, it's like, it feels like kind of tingly, and I don't know why. And I keep staring at it, trying to like figure out why. But I just thought that was really cool, and I had to share that with you. So I'm definitely going to meditate on that, because I do want to see, I obviously feel like there's some meaning in there for me. So I really just thought that was awesome, because I've never had that happen before. But look, sorry, I'm trying to get the camera right. But here is another one. I mean, so when you were doing these images, like how, like did they, your hand just start going and you started writing it, or, you know, you just had a picture in your head and you just drew it? Like, how did that process go for you?
Yes and yes. So I had a notebook, so I would get an idea of something and I would sketch it out in the notebook. You might notice that some of these look like crop circles. So I was inspired by crop circles. Some of them look like mandalas. And so I wasn't trying to replicate, I wasn't trying to replicate a specific mandala. Sometimes I just started, I'll draw this, I'll draw those. Now, and then what happens when I interact with or create art, it tells me, it's like, do you want, put a circle here, try that. Okay, do this thing in the middle. All right, let's put some of this here. And so it was partially having an idea ahead of time and then just seeing how it evolved. Sometimes it was specific things, like I would go online and look at art just to get inspired. Right. One of the things that may not be obvious, because very rarely when somebody gets a deck do they take it and look at all of the cards at the same time. But every single card has some form of circles or dots. Yes, I did notice that. I did, yes. And that is on purpose, because when I got the idea, even that one has dots. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I was not going to do the art. That was not my intention. Really? Do you do art? Like, are you an art, like, consider yourself an artist? Like, I am an artist, but all right. With that, you know, so I was ready to start this deck a year before I did. But because I'd never done it before, I had all kinds of questions like, do I find the artist? Does my publisher find the artist? Do I pay the artist? They pay the artist? Like, there are so many questions. I totally get it. So I had a reading with my medium in January of 2020, and she said, well, Steph, you're supposed to do the artwork. Oh, okay then. Right. I love that. once that happened and I gave myself permission to go, oh, okay, I can be the artist here, then the inspiration for the dots and circles came in, and I realized that those specifically are what are acting as the transmission device, the activation device.
Yes. Oh, wow. That's really cool. Wow. So now when you were going through, and I know you have the four pillars, each 11 cards. Now, did they come to you like each pillar, or was it like all together? And like you said at the end, they just kind of like, whoop, here it is.
Yeah, it all just came together in the end. And it when it comes together, it was like inside of an hour, I had they had all sorted themselves out. I had written on my whiteboard, I'm like, okay, we're going to call these initiatory paths. Here are the, here's the order. This is 1 through 11. This is, 12
That's
through
the way
20.
to do it.
I mean, but they tell me, it's like it just becomes obvious. And then, it took a little longer to write the names of each of the initiatory paths. But because what I would do is I would take the 11. And what's interesting is they have, like in one path, almost every image is centered on the card. On another path, there's practically no images that have a central, like they're symmetrical. And so it was really amazing to see how those came together.
Right. And then you have that one, which is more, definitely. And then this one's just more fluid for sure. And mine are all out of order because, like I said, I was using them, so they're all just all over the place. And I kept looking through them, especially that one. I'm like, what are you trying to tell me? I know, poor eye wants to know. Oh, I'm telling you. So, yeah, no, I think, it's such a cool process how it all came together like that. And even though like they're so different, but they're also alike in a way, you know what I mean? Like they all tie together, even though they're like those different paths. So I really, and I think again, it just goes back to that fluidity of it all, and just like, yeah, you can kind of go through this as you are meant to, and there's no wrong way to do it, which is another thing too. And I know in your guidebook and stuff, you say that a lot too. Like there's no right or wrong way to do it. So I think that's so important for people to know as well, because we are, again, like you said, we get stuck in that 3D mind. Like, okay, it's supposed to be like this, this, and this, and that's it. And if you don't do it that way, it's wrong. Yeah. But it isn't like that. It's whatever it is. And again, trusting your body, like you said, and it's so important. So
can I share a funny story?
Absolutely. I'm talking about my weird eyeball. I mean, you have to share something now.
I have probably 25 decks. I love Oracle decks. I use them all the time. But when my spiritual awakening began and I started using Oracle cards, I would get so pissed because I'd be like, pull several cards. I'd read them and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. I don't understand.
What is this nonsense?
I put them back in the box and I'm like, I want a new card.
That's when you go for another deck. You're like, you know what? This one's just not good today. Let's try this one. 3 decks later, you're like, all right, never mind.
Yeah.
That is so funny though. I know it is true. I am also a collector. I have tarot and Oracle and Lenormand, and I have all the decks. I always joke around that I'm like the whore of the Mancies. Any Mancy out there, I know it. I've done it, and I have something related to it. And I can't help it. Like I like all the things. Yeah. But so now, how did all of this start for you? Like where, you're just going through, and now how are you this wonderful spiritual being?
Well, I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
Short version. It's kind of like a coming home, because I was a very intuitive, creative child. I played cowboys and Indians. I was always the Indian, right? I had a little medicine bag, a little crochet drawstring bag that had sticks and rocks and costume jewelry. It was like my little medicine woman bag. I went to a creative and performing arts school, like the TV show Fame, if anybody remembers that. And then fast forward a few years and I get a math degree and become an Air Force officer. So I
Oh,
was in the Air Force for 10 years.
oh my goodness. Well, thank you for your service. You badass over here. Look at that.
The people that know me now that didn't know me then are like, what?
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So it is quite the, which one of these is not like the other?
Yes.
It's like, are you the same person? How are those both?
That's always amazing though, when someone can throw out something like that. And I mean, you have to love it. You have to just be like, that was me.
Yeah. And I see now how, I think it's this way for all of us. One of my teachers says that all of our woundings and traumas, all of the disparate experiences of our lives are perfectly suited to make us the agent of our purpose.
Right.
And so, I can see now, I one of the lenses that really helps me understand that journey is looking at it through the masculine and feminine, right? I was a very feminine archetypal energy, right brain child.
Right.
And then all of that started shutting down when I entered puberty in high school. I had moved in with my dad and stepmom, and it was not a, pleasant, supportive situation. And so my masculine, dun-da-da, I'll save you, and takes my feminine and puts her in a box and puts her away for safekeeping. And so that's, you could chart my high school feminine expression going down, masculine expression going up. And by the time it's time for me to make decisions about my adult life, I'm like, well, let me try out for the Air Force Academy and I'll get a master, like all of this kind of stuff. And so my spiritual awakening happened when I left the military. And it wasn't, hey, I know what I'm going to do next. It's time to leave. It was, I think it's time to get out. Now what am I going to do?
Right.
And my financial advisor with the company that I'd been with for 10 years said, well, Steph, you're really good with people. Do you want to do this? And I was like, okay.
Sure, why not?
I'll be good at that. All right, I'll do that. No passion, no heart, didn't know how to make decisions like that. I shut my heart down. And so I went through the process, studied for my exams to sell insurance and securities, blah, blah, blah. Quit in less than 6 months because I hated it. Lost $25,000 because I didn't stay in long enough to recoup it. And that is what started me on my spiritual journey in earnest, because I was just lost. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who I was. And so I entered a 5-year period of time that I have described as living 100 years, because it was so accelerated and so much changed. And I call that period of time the spiritual crucible. That's where that phrase came from in the card that you held up. Because I was just getting cooked down and cooked down and cooked down into a completely different substance. And, on the end of it, nothing was the same. My job, my house, my marriage, my finances, everything was
different.
Everything was different. But I came out of that saying, I think I have some wisdom here. I think I have some gold nuggets. And if I can make somebody else's journey, that time in the crucible or their awakening shorter, less painful, if I can help explain what's happening at a subtle energetic level, if I can give them tools, I mean, that was the call that was in my heart. And that is why I started my business 15 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's like you kind of went through it so other people didn't have to. Right. Yeah. You are so nice. Thank you for that. That's it. I mean, and so, even for you going, leading you to the shamanic path, how did you fall into that?
Yeah. I moved to Kansas City, and the job that I was at, met a woman who introduced me to the woman that would become probably the most influential female mentor next to my mother and sister. And she studied in this Peruvian tradition of shamanism. But the first thing I engaged with her with is she facilitates something called the priestess process. Which is a 9-month, women's mysteries. And it was one of those things where she had a preview at somebody's house, and I was bawling the entire time, 2 hours in this person's house. She's explaining what's going on. I have no idea. I'm like, divine feminine, what the hell is it? You know, all of these other terms, but I knew like something inside of me was just screaming and crying and reaching out. And so I went through the priestess process. I went through the follow-on, the high priestess process. Essentially, I became a facilitator of that work. She and her partner introduced me to the tradition is called the Pachacuti Mesa tradition of Peru. And it felt like home, honestly. Just, you know, the shamanic practices, shamanic consciousness, those things, it just felt like home. And, you know, I understanding a lot of my life experiences through the lens of kind of the shamanic death and rebirth process was really helpful, because I set up a lot of intense accelerated processes for myself in this life. And so I really, you know, had to make friends with surrendering and make friends with death, make, you know, the psychic death, the shamanic death.
Yeah.
So
Right. So, you know, and I know you were talking about you know, you had kind of took your feminine and energy and put it in that little box and stored it away. So how did you connect back with that once you were able to really let her back out?
Yeah, the priestess process, this woman that I'm talking about, that was really the beginning for me. I mean, I had started a few years before that, I had started studying Buddhism, energy practices, Reiki. So I was already on this path of discovery, kind of just voraciously taking in books and all of these sorts of things, learning, you know, so I'm healing myself. I mean, that's kind of the primary reason, but there's also this other piece that's like, okay, I'm ready for this. And it's interesting. One of the first books that I read in my spiritual awakening was Conversations with God. And it was a friend of mine recommended that. And I swear every page, I'm turning the page, I'm like, I knew it. I knew that's what it was. You know, I knew that's yes. It was very liberating, because I grew up Lutheran, which is kind of like Catholic light, but there was, you know, I was kind of estranged from God, if you will, in that I couldn't sort out for myself who God was, or, you know, like religion was failing me. And at that point, I didn't know what else to do. So I just kind of put it on the back burner. I'm like, okay, when it comes time to sort this out, I'll sort it out. But right now it's like, I don't know what to think.
Yeah. And I mean, I think a lot of people definitely feel that way, for sure. I mean, and I think especially with in the last couple of years too, you know, people have had a little bit more time on their hands to even like look into these things too. So I think that's, you know, something that is kind of like an awakening right now too. Like there's just been a lot of extra. And I think that's also too why we're getting all the things on social media even that are like, not so great, like advice. And then, you know, there is good stuff out there. And I think, you know, and anybody, if you're listening too, definitely Amber is putting all the links for Stephanie's info in there. So if you are interested or have questions, you can definitely follow the links and it'll get you where you need to be for sure. So once, you know, once you went through and you did all of these things, you decided to, you know, you these cards downloaded for you, all these things are happening. And so like, what's going on for you? Like, where are you now? Where do you feel like you are on your path right now?
Yeah. It's expanding. I mean, right now it's kind of the unsexy focus of the business aspect of service, right? You know, like the last half of last year, I spent a lot of time kind of getting systems and processes in place,
the back end stuff.
To support what I hope will be more growth and expansion, trying to get in front of more audiences, looking for speaking opportunities and telesummits and, you know, all of those sorts of things. In terms of my next work, you know, my left brain gets all excited. And I remember in the beginning, because my first book, The Evolutionary Empath, came out 2 years ago, last November.
Okay.
And I was thinking, all right, I want to have something about every year to 18 months. And now I'm just kind of laughing at myself like, okay, yeah, especially in traditional publishing, because they work, pretty over
out. Yeah. We can make these things up in our head, but then there's real life, and that happens, unfortunately.
In terms of what my next published work will be, I would really like to know what that is. And I have an idea, but it's not time. It's still gestating, and I'm just having to trust the process. There's two themes that I'm sitting with. One has to do with the divine feminine and the feminine and masculine archetypal energies and how they play out in our lives, and kind of like the divine feminine for dummies sort of thing.
Right.
But then another idea is around creating a guidebook for practices for ascension, right? To consciously engage these higher frequencies. And so I'm just listening for when is the right time and what is the right thing. But, in the meantime, I'm creating and offering programs and workshops and other, products on my website. So I'm not creating. It's just the published work is still gestating.
Yeah. Yeah. And could you tell us about the programs that you do offer?
Oh my goodness. Sorry, I'm trying to say three things at one time. What I have found is I rarely repeat a program because things evolve so quickly. So I know there's some people that is their thing. They have a program, they have what they're known for, and they offer it year after year. And I so love people who can do that. And for me, it has to be juicy and exciting for me as well. And so for example, last year I got a download to create a program called Sirius High Magic. Sirius is in the star, because that is my lineage, if you will. I have a very strong resonance with the celestial beings. I have a program that I'm starting that debuts February 3rd in a few weeks, called Bodacious Boundaries. So that one's a little more 3D practical, finding your no, overcoming overwhelm, plugging energy leaks, kind of the practical toolbox that empaths need.
That's so needed too, though. That's so needed.
Yes. I have an idea that I'm still creating that will mirror or work with this actual deck. I'm creating a mystery school that I'm hoping to launch. I don't have a date. I'm thinking May, but I don't know, just kind of depends on how things work out. So it just a lot of different things. Spirit downloads me with a lot of ideas, and more than I can execute.
Right. I know, it's the ideas are never the issue. It's actually getting them past that point. That's where it gets hard.
Yes, I need 3 of me.
Yeah. Oh yes. No, I could definitely use an extra of me for sure. I don't know if I'd be able to stand her too long, but she could be useful sometimes. So I know that you also you created the Blue Star Temple. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yes. It is the name of my business. It's not what I started with 15 years ago, but about four-ish years ago, I was petitioning the universe, okay, there's a new energy. There's something wanting to come through. What ties everything that I do together? And was startled awake one night as I was falling asleep with this name. And so it has multiple energies for me. And I was basically given step 1. And I know that there's more, and I know that I will get that information when I'm supposed to. But the main energy that Blue Star Temple refers to in terms of the blue star is Sirius.
Yep.
But it also pulls in the energy of Venus and the work with the feminine that I do, and Gaia as the blue planet. So there's this kind of multi-dimensional aspect to the energy of that. But right now, Blue Star Temple is my website. It is my online presence. I don't have a brick and mortar, but it is the container for my work.
Yeah, no, when I saw your name of it too, I immediately thought of Sirius. So I kind of think that's cool that I was right. I'm like, that seems, because I'm very into like the celestial and all that too. So for me, that's what I picked up right away. So I thought that was kind of cool. I'll take it. So you know, do you have any parting advice for our listeners today?
Yeah, well, we didn't have an opportunity to kind of cycle the conversation around to empath stuff, but I do suspect that most, if not all, of the people in your audience are empaths or sensitive souls, and so I just invite you, if you're looking for support, if you feel like you know, you're looking for community, you're looking for tools. I direct you towards my first book, The Evolutionary Empath, which is an award-winning book and an international bestseller. And just, you know that as an empath, you are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not born at the wrong time. You know, my belief is that empaths are here to help humanity ascend to the next level of consciousness.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, let's talk about that book a little. I don't have that book. I need to get that book because I feel like I need to read that. So tell me about what brought you to write that book.
Mm-hmm. I knew that I was going to write a book. That has always, I've known that for a number of years. I started to write another book, got about 5,000 words into it, and realized that's not supposed to be my first book. And so, at that time, I was finishing up my master's and starting on my doctorate. And so the manuscript for The Evolutionary Empath actually doubled as my doctoral thesis. Oh. And it was a really beautiful process because the woman who created Venus Rising University, her name is Linda Starwolf, and she's one of my mentors. She had written quite a few books by that point, and she said, "Why don't you send me your proposal, and I will send it on." So you send your proposal directly to them, but you also send it to me, and I'll send it to them, and so we'll kind of hit them from two angles. And I was like, because my publisher is Inner Traditions Bear and Company, and they were already on my list of people I wanted to contact. I'm like, great, if they don't want it, I'll move to other people on the list. Yeah. I sent one proposal to one publisher and got picked up. Wow. So that does not.
That's awesome.
Amazing. And it was one of those drop to your knees moments when I got the email that they were accepting it for publication. It's not very often that you have a trajectory changing moment and know in that moment that it's a trajectory changing.
Right.
So, and I had been leading workshops for years on empaths, and, so I had a body of work to draw from. And then, just with my process with my guides, of course, you rearrange it, new things come in. Right. So
yeah, move some stuff around, add a whole new chapter you didn't know existed. I totally get that. So for people too, I feel like the word empath is so misunderstood. And I feel that people don't really know exactly what it is. Could you give us just kind of help define it and shape it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to cheat and read from my books.
Stephanie, you can read to me anytime you want, please, anytime.
So it's funny that when I wrote this book, my spirit guides only gave me one directive, and that was create a definition. And I went, okay, sure, no pressure.
Totally fine. I got you.
Right. But, it's the term empath has been around for decades, and it's, people generally understand what it means. Elaine Aron, with her book Highly Sensitive Person, I think brought the concept to the forefront. But empath is like a highly sensitive person plus. There's more to it. Yeah. But in my work, what I ended up doing was identifying 5 distinct qualities of an empath, and so I just want to share those.
Yeah, please.
So the first is our ability to merge with and absorb the energy of other beings, whether that's animals, humans, anything with life force. And this stems from having a very open personal energy field. We tend to show up on the planet just open and sponge-like and, sucking it all in. But this is also the quality that makes it challenging for us to establish boundaries, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's easier for us to blend and merge than to figure out where we end and the next person begins.
Right.
The second quality is that we have a highly sensitive nervous system, which kind of sounds like a duh, like nervous systems are supposed to be sensitive.
Right. But
it's like ours was turned up to 200.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
So this is the quality that can, cause us to experience a lot of overstimulation and overwhelm, and
like the sensory stuff. Yeah.
Requires, very vigilant,
right?
Vigilant self-care. So the third quality is the great sensitivity that we have to the energies around us, and an ability to perceive or access subtle information that's stored in the energy field of others. And so this is a big category. So, it can present in a lot of different ways, whether that's seeing the dead, or seeing ghosts, or being able to be an animal communicator, or a medium, or we tend towards shamanism and energy healing, and all of these things that are about subtle energies. And
that's kind of like where I live. Like I live right there. For sure.
Yes. The fourth quality is the premium that we place on peace and harmony, and that is in our own energy field, that's in our relationships, that's in our environment.
Right.
And so, and when we don't know this about ourselves, we tend to, we can be doormats and pushovers, and we don't want to rock the boat, right? Because we want to keep it calm, quiet, peaceful.
And you're constantly exhausted, but you don't know why.
Or you're constantly fiddling with stuff, and you're like the paint color needs to change, this knick-knack needs to go here. It's like, the energy of the inner has to match the energy of the outer.
Right.
And the fifth quality is our big open hearts and a desire to serve others, which, can tend to make us put ourselves last on the list and put everybody else first. So, and there's no cosmopolitan quiz for this. Like, okay, if you answer 1 to 9, you're a mild empath. 10 to 20, you're a moderate empath. It's just, all empaths land on different places on the scale of each of these 5 qualities. So it's not like you have to have all 5 to say you're an empath, and if you don't have them, you're not. It's
right.
Thing. Yeah.
And and that is something too. You always say that, like, you always see online, like, are you an empath? Take this quiz, and I always will click on, like, I always want to see, like, what they say.
Yeah, it's human nature.
I'm like, all right, let me see. And most of everyone here at the Cardomancer knows too, I tend to do late night clicking on things. I bought an advent calendar that was supposed to be all David Bowie, because I love David Bowie, but it was nothing but like kids' toys. It was total opposite. And I filmed it each day for all of us. And it was is non-sensory craziness. It was just craziness. But that's me doing my late night clicking. So I'm clicking on all the quizzes. Okay. And, but some of them on there, like when I'm reading them, I'm just like, you can't even answer this in a yes or no question. So you're like, I would think for someone who is really stressed out, trying to figure out, like, I keep hearing about empath, maybe that's what I am. And they're trying to do these quizzes. Like, that is just even more stressful. So like you said, again, I think just kind of our theme through it all is just that keeping that fluidity, and just like, you could be a little of this and little of that. And that's totally fine. Like, stop trying to put everything in a box,
Well, and something to consider too is that depending on how we were raised, the messages we were given, and the coping mechanisms that we created, we take those qualities and shove them down, sometimes to the point, like there's people I've talked to, they're like, well, that's not me. That's because they've so separated themselves from their natural aspects, and put on a mask, like so many have had to do, right? Because we've been made fun of, misunderstood, all of these things. And so it's like we put on the mask to do, this is what's appropriate, or this is what's going to be successful. And then at some point we can no longer tolerate the dissonance between how we're presenting ourselves and who we really are. So for some people, it's like they might read that and go, you know, and then 6 months later go, oh my God, that was
right.
me. You know?
Right. Or if somebody else tells you this, like, hey, you know, this, and this, and you're like, what are you even talking about? And then, like you said, a couple months later, it's like, oh, okay. And it's funny because I always will explain to people too, it's like your phone voice. All of us, when we get on the phone, we have like a higher pitched voice. Like it always happens. And it's just something that happens. So I feel like you're saying, like, put on the mask. Like I'm always like, nope, there's your phone voice, you know?
Or,
and it's
I feel the same way with waitresses. That's the example I use. Hi, how are you? And I'm almost like, come back into your body.
Why am I doing that? Like, why am I doing that? But we're conditioned to do it. And I feel like that's the easiest example to, you know, for people too, because we all freaking do it. And it's like, we don't even realize that we do it, you know? And the next time you all answer the phone, think about this. Think about this. But yeah, so, you know, I love that. So in your empath book, like what else do you cover in there?
Yeah, it's 2 parts. And so, you know, one of the things that I feel like I have a gift in is providing context. And so the first half is the big picture, you know, cosmic perspective, pull back as far as you can and look at where we are in the grand cycle of the great year. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but it's some people say it's a 24,000 year cycle. Some say 26,000. There's a reason for the discrepancy, but basically it describes this vast period of time of ascending in human consciousness and descending, you know, ascending in civilization and sophistication, and then descending into, you know, ignorance. Mm-hmm. We are on the upswing. So if you're familiar with the Iron Age, Bronze Age, Silver Age, Golden Age, describing ages of consciousness, we're not talking about when man started working with, you know, tools and to work with certain metals. We are out of the Iron Age. We're into the Bronze Age. We are ascending. We're in this process now of gaining consciousness and raising in vibration. And so that really comes down to what I said earlier, is that I believe empaths are here to help humanity ascend to the next level of consciousness. Yeah. That, you know, there's a quote from the movie Moneyball that says, the first guy through the wall always gets bloody. And those of us who are all here right now on planet Earth as empaths, we are the empathic Big Bang, and we are the first ones through the wall getting bloody. Right. Paving the way for the ones coming behind us. Mm-hmm. And so the first half of the book is all about this bigger picture context, the definition, you know, these sorts of things. The second half is tools, practicality, 3D, rubber meets the road, you know, so that's kind of my signature of anything I do. It's like, I'm going to give you the biggest picture perspective, and then I'm going to help you make it practical and figure out how to apply it. And so it's all about boundaries and energy hygiene and understanding the masculine and feminine and self-care and embodiment and all of these things that are really important to take us from merely surviving to ecstatically thriving as an empath.
Yeah, no, and it is so important. And I noticed that too, even with your guidebook for the cards too. Like you go in and you explain all of these big things, and then you're like, okay, also this is how you work with it. This is what you do with it. So I love that you give those tools, because it's so important. I think, and even right now, because like I was saying, there's so many things changing. Like you said, we're like, everybody's just crashing through the wall at this point. And you know, there's a lot of information out there, but it just gives you the information and that's it. And then you're all just like, yeah, I read that, I get it all, but now what, you know? So I love that you do that. And I'm going to definitely get your book too. I think that's a really good, it sounds like a fantastic resource, even when you're working with other people who are empaths as well. Yeah. I love that.
Let me just add that the book also includes 8 guided meditations. There's a website that you can go to. And so these are kind of embodiment practices, taking some of the concepts and having an opportunity to experience them and work with them.
Oh, that's so important too. Oh, I love that. That's awesome. Oh, I'm excited now. I'm excited. Well, Stephanie, thank you so very much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, me too. This was great.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see what comes next with you. And, you know, maybe we'll have you on again and we'll see we'll see what downloads next, what your guides have for you. Here, guides, you hear? All right, Stephanie, you have a fantastic night. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
And thank you, everybody, for joining us here. The replay will be on the Facebook page and then also on YouTube. So if you didn't catch all of today, you can always catch it on there. And until next time, bye, guys. Thank you.